Hi, and welcome back to the Mob Mentality Show. I'm Chris Lucian, and my co-host is Austin Chadwick. And today we're going to talk a little bit about mobbing feature priority or collective product ownership, I guess. So, Austin, maybe you can kick us off with some thoughts on this topic.
Yeah. So I guess I'll start off theoretically and then maybe go into a little storytelling of an experience I had recently that was quite phenomenal and really fun. And so I mean, it's something that's kind of been in the corners of my mind for a while. And some of the mob community have even reached out and given us feedback that, mob programming has this incredible ability to take silos, whether it's knowledge or skill or tech, and then it does two things. One is it disseminates it amongst all the people in the ensemble or the mob, right? And then also, since usually mobs have a big thing for automation, it gets automated, right? And so, knowledge gets baked into the code, it gets baked into each other. And so, and the feedback has been, can mobbing do that to kind of the, if you were thinking classic Scrum, like product owner type silo or knowledge or skills or that kind of thing. And so that's been kind of lurking in my mind for a while there. And so to give a different example of what I experienced is, sometimes you could be mob programming, but there's still the product owner or the product expert, and he might show up and just come with already a predefined set of things like, hey, I've worked with customers, I've talked with them directly. I've also, talked to our internal people and with finance and all the things. Here are our priorities, A, B, and C, right? And then the mob might have questions, they might challenge it, there might be a discussion there, and then they'll iterate on it, build something, show him the next day, build something, show him or her the next day. And that kind of iteration process works well, but the kind of product discovery on what to work on next is somewhat largely decided. Of course, there's adjustments that happen, right? So, they started out thinking A is going to be the top thing. And then after we work on it for a while, we discover that B is really the top thing. So we kind of morph it into B. Or, A becomes A prime by discoveries we find by shipping it and the market tells us different, or it looks different than we expected. But pretty much the prioritized list of A, B, and C kind of came into the mob or team predefined, so to speak. And then I had a recent experience lately where it was something completely different. So basically the person who was really in tune with the customers and the market needs, we were having the conversation on what to work on next. And he basically said, it's kind of in this big ballpark domain area, but I don't know what to do. And it was really awesome, radical candor and psychological safety from his perspective, because I think typically they're expected to know, right? and so he knew, like, here's a big market opportunity, but how we go about it, I'm not sure at all. And so what it kicked off was this kind of collective product discovery phase where we ran a bunch of experiments. We diagrammed together with the product people on various options. We had like this virtual whiteboard of, option A, option B, option C, option D, and everyone was weighing in. So he was weighing in like, okay, if we went with option A, that would be kind of like a half win for the market. It wouldn't be that great, but it's, I see from a technological perspective, it's simpler. So he was kind of adding in that information. We were adding in like, hey, where's the best bargain hunt, as far as like, technical simplicity, right? And so we kind of went through that. And after running various experiments on, back-end technology, front-end technology, how to craft the feature, UI, and then we had this list of options. And what was really nice is through that collective diagramming, discussion, and rapid experimentation on the tech, it became pretty clear to everyone that one of the options was the way to go. And so then after that point, it was back to where it was before, where we're like building it, getting feedback, building it, getting feedback, building it, getting feedback. But it was a really cool experience where it wasn't just, hey, here's the list. We got to help discover the list together. And so, Chris, that was kind of the story I had to share. Did you have any similar experiences or follow-up questions or anything?
Yeah, no, I think that one thing that this reminds me of a little bit is the simplification that I think Fred George goes through when he talks about programmer anarchy. He in the concept, it's kind of the customer, the developers, and then I forget the third, but they have a kind of a triangle of interactions. And in the programmer anarchy style, a lot of it is direct customer discovery and incorporating features. But also, another thing while you were talking that I was reminded of is a little bit of maybe the maturity of the knowledge space of the market. And so, for example, I think that it's pretty easy to know that you maybe need a grid of numbers for a spreadsheet or something, right? But it's hard to understand, like in Excel, all of the really high level, like, formulas should operate in a certain way and whatever, right? So if you're setting out to build Excel, for example, you're probably, or compete against Excel, for example, you probably have like a series of maybe no-brainers, right? And I think that as things become more and more developed and you're becoming, you're going from established areas for a product and evolving them into something more and more innovative, you basically have to get to that point where all the no-brainer things kind of are taken care of. And so I think that, kind of as a sign of product maturity, even or whether or not you're in an innovative space, collaboration, the value of collaboration goes hot up and up and up as things are less obvious on what to do next. And so my guess is, I would ask you, what in your experience was this something that was more on the innovative side, to the point where that collaboration was really required, right?
Yeah, it was, because it was a pretty complicated problem in the fact that the existing product was pretty complicated to begin with, right? You got hardware, you have firmware, you have software, you have various levels of software, whether it's cloud and other parts of the stack, and then there was this also included third-party integration, and so then you're interacting with another team, with their own code and their own hardware. And then, so yeah, it was pretty complicated, and it's kind of like a first to market type thing. And so, yeah, it definitely was that. A lot of the tough problems in product development were, a lot of those factors were there for sure.
And I think that a lot of the things that happen naturally when, first starting out mobbing, it was like there are a number of innovations that happen because of the collaboration just in code, right? And so why wouldn't that extrapolate to product ownership type activities, especially if developers can visit customer situations and see that. And so I think that was also pretty common for the team, was to go and experience in-person interactions with that customer base, and then evolving, just like mobbing amongst a group of developers will break down silos and improve collaboration. I think that given enough information or enough of a lack of information, then mobbing makes a lot of sense for product ownership too. In the sense of just understanding really well what comes next. But if it's something that is really well known from the field, and the developers don't have a whole bunch of time to be in the field all the time to talk to those people, that's a very different story, because it is a kind of a no-brainer. We need that thing that the field is asking for, that that's lacking. But as soon as it's something where it's like, hey, we can generate interest from a thing that the field is not doing at all, right? Your customer base has never even realized that they had the problem in the first place, even sometimes. And in those scenarios, I think it's really great, because you can kind of I think that the more people involved in that discussion and throwing around ideas can really accelerate the kind of insular innovation that happens maybe before getting that feedback. But it's always really important to get that feedback as fast as possible. But there's probably some idea or some situation where the idea kind of proofs for a little while internally before sending it out to everyone.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's a great point, that it maybe was more unique. It wasn't a no-brainer situation, right? And so it was more obvious that the collective hive mind would really help out. And so yeah, and there were a couple other things that I noticed. Yeah, so one was customer interaction. I didn't really reflect on that. This involved the mob having direct customer interaction. So whether at a show or on customer site, using the hardware, seeing how they operate. So the mob team was involved in that in this case. One thing that was really cool for me is I learned a lot about how kind of like market thinking works, right? So we collectively discovered the vision we are going for. What's this innovative, new thing that no one else is doing, and what benefit does that provide the end customers, right? And so I've always thought about that before, but it was much deeper. It was like a couple layers deeper that I really learned. And I think it gave people who maybe normally only do development to learn and see those things and see how to discover those things. And what was also really fun about it was seeing the result. So seeing it used in the field, and seeing the whole end-to-end process working. And then we were also involved in the demonstration to customers too, in this case, which always isn't the case. And it was really fun because you helped make a thing. You were involved in it from, soup to nuts, the whole thing. And then you got to see the first usages of it from customers or demonstrations. And it was so cool to literally see like 8 out of 10 customers who saw it say the words, wow, right? Yeah. And so I think it was a really cool moment for me, because it's usually you don't see the full system, right? You might hear about it like, oh, we delivered this thing and that really helped this sale in this region or something like that, right? But it's really rare that you experience each piece firsthand. And this was a case where we really did. And it was really rewarding, right? And I think maybe it kind of goes back to some of the stuff with Joy Inc. So Richard Sheridan's material. We can put a link in the show notes for that, where a lot of the joy of work comes when you see the result of your work, right? End to end. And that was really fun. And the last thing I had to say was, I got to jab you a little bit. Your examples now are about Excel, which tells me that maybe you're doing a little bit too much Excel, Chris.
Yep, absolutely. I think that it's especially interesting, so I'll just, maybe for the audience context, we're referring to a IoT project. So we have these physical interactions. So it might be easier actually for a pure software team to have these experiences, especially because you can bring people into the office or watch them remotely. I see a lot of companies using tools like Hotjar and things like that, where they, can record a session from an individual user and see that. And so I think there's a lot of value in developers understanding those needs. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for really bright, innovative collaboration when you're working on something that is not proven, like true R&D. So that's kind of where it is. And I think that, it's a really cool experience.
Awesome. Well, thank you, audience. Thank you for hearing our story here with that. Do you have any similar stories where, the product discovery, product experimentation, that turned into more of a collective activity instead of a solo activity? Or, hey, so this being a solo thing works really, really well, and maybe your thing's weird, Austin, and so we love to get all feedback, on LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and more. So we'd love to see your comments and hear your stories. But until next time, mob well, everyone, and have a good one. Bye.
Bye, everybody.